So Commissioner Ladwig, he's going to continue to work on, the president's going to continue to work on his mic, but I think it'd be best if you just proceed by opening up the meeting and doing a quick roll call so we can accurately document which commissioners are online.
Okay, we'll call this meeting to order. Commissioner Masterson.
Here, sir.
Commissioner Lundvall.
Here.
Commissioner Jolovich. Commissioner Brokaw.
He can hear you, so we count him as here.
Commissioner Roberts.
Here.
And that's about it, right?
Commissioner Bell is there in the room.
Yep, present.
I see Commissioner Bell. And I'm here.
All right, so I'll go ahead and kick this meeting off just with a brief intro, and then we'll be turning it over to Chief King. For those folks that are watching online, there will be an opportunity before the commission takes any action today to listen to public comment. I do acknowledge, I believe we've got at least 5 that have provided advance notification that they want to comment, and Chief Gokhale has those names and we'll be able to provide those to you, Vice President Ladwig, when the time comes. So as a matter of introduction, at our April commission meeting, the commission provided direction to the department to explore what processes might be implemented in order to open up both the mountain lion regulation as well as the black bear regulation outside of the normal 3-year cycle, with a focus on evaluating whether changing quotas in those areas where we had high winter mortality on particularly pronghorn and mule deer, in response to those, to the high winter mortality. So here today, when I turn it over to Chief King, he's going to provide you with some different options on what that could look like if the commission wants the department to go down the road of opening those quotas up. And I'll turn it with that over to Chief King.
Thanks, Director Nesbitt. Good morning, President Brokaw and members of the commission, Director Nesbitt. As Brian alluded to today, I intend to just give a synopsis of some different options that you all might consider, and we'll ask for direction as to how to proceed at the end of this meeting. Samuel, if you could start the PowerPoint. So can everybody see the PowerPoint presentation? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I can see it.
Yep.
Thank you. So as Director Nesbitt mentioned, the purpose of this meeting is a follow-up from the April season setting meeting. As you all recall, we heard a lot of concern from the public about how best to help our big game herds recover from the extreme winter mortality that we saw this year. And one of the topics of discussion was certainly large carnivores. So our intent here today is to talk through some different options that the commission may consider in terms of giving us direction as far as process and how to proceed. So I'll start with laying out some different options for you to think about. I'll give a quick overview of our current black bear regulations. I'll do the same for mountain lions. And then at the very end, I'll ask for the commission to provide direction to the department in terms of a course of action and timeline for process. So just some options to consider. And I wanted to put this up front so that you can have it at the forefront of your thinking as we go through this quick presentation. There are a couple of options for you to consider. We do typically look at bear and mountain lion regulations on a 3-year review cycle. And I'll explain that in a little more detail in just a minute. Another option would be to consider emergency regulations, and you could direct the department to undertake emergency regulations to adjust mortality limits or season dates in Chapter 3 and Chapter 42. Or the third option is the department's recommended course of action and timeline, and I'll get to that in just a minute. But these are just some options for you to be thinking about as I run through this presentation. And again, at the end, we'll be looking for direction in terms of processes and how to proceed. We won't be looking at getting into the weeds in terms of mortality limits here today. But I did want to provide a really quick overview of black bear and mountain lion management and talk through just a couple of key highlights. And the intent here is not to get into the weeds. As you all know, we have much smarter people than the chief game warden to talk through these issues. So today you get the chief game warden's high level overview of bear and lion management. And this is just to help kind of frame up our thinking for looking to adjust the process. So our black bear management, we evaluate population trends using a 3-year average. You'll see that 3-year average come into play with lions as well. And we do that in order to smooth out some of the anomalies that can occur from year to year and to give us a better trend, overall trend in terms of harvest and population metrics that we look at. For black bears, the harvest metrics that we look at are the percent of the adult males in the total harvest, the percent of the all females in total harvest, and then the percent of adult females in total harvest. We also have been incorporating a DNA hair snare technique to help estimate abundance. And as you'll recall, we spent some time at the January meeting talking through the utility of that method to help us get a better estimate of black bear population densities. As you all know, bears and lions are hard to count. They don't stand around on the winter range and let us count them like big game critters do. But using a combination of these, we can determine a general trend in the population. So there's several things on this map. The color coding just refers to our game and fish regions. The darker lines refer to our black bear management units, and then the smaller, thinner black lines are our black bear hunt areas. I just put this up for your reference. So at the January commission meeting, we walked through an example of a black bear management unit and how we utilize those harvest metrics to give an indication as to what the general trend of the population is. So on this slide, on the upper left corner, the bar graph is the total harvest. The blue is male harvest, the red is female harvest. And as you can see in the Grays River Black Bear Management Unit, we've significantly increased harvest over the years, where over the last several years, we've killed or harvested over 100 black bears in that BMU. The graph on the right is the percent of adult males in the harvest. And you can see that generally the percent of adult males in the harvest has declined over the last 20 or so years. On the bottom left is the percent of females in total harvest. You can see that it's increased a little bit over the last 20 years. And then the bottom right graph is the percent of adult females in the harvest, and it's remained relatively stable. So that information combined with our DNA hair snare technique gives us an indication of where that population is at and the trend that it's following. And again, the purpose is not to get into the weeds here, but just to give you an overview of why the harvest information is so important and why a 3-year trend is important for us. So as a reminder, we brought forth a draft Chapter 3 black bear regulation to you at the January meeting in Cheyenne. We did adjust mortality limits in several hunt areas, which you all approved. But we also, as you'll recall, had a pretty lengthy discussion with a number of key stakeholders, including several members of the outfitting community. They had a lot of questions or concerns about different aspects of our regulation, including the number and type of bait containers, our check-in procedures, the need or the desire to remove archery seasons, and several other items that we discussed at length. And as you'll recall, Director Nesbitt at that meeting committed that the department would work with our stakeholders to visit with all stakeholders on these issues and revisit parts of our regulation and look for some solutions that may work for everybody. So those efforts are underway right now. And I know we've set up some meetings for later this summer with those key stakeholders. And just as an overview, at that January meeting, we did increase quotas or mortality limits in several hunt areas, including the Bighorns, Laramie Peak, Sierra Madres, and the south end of the Wyoming range. So this is the end of last fall. And I just put this up to highlight a couple of things. And so that arrow on the upper right and on the Sierra Madre Hunt Area 9 line indicates that the Sierra Madre season closed on October 9th last fall after reaching the female mortality limits. That is an area where in January of 2023, we increased that mortality limit. And so for this spring and this coming fall, we'll have an increased mortality limit there. Other places where we didn't increase the mortality limit, including the Grays River Hunt areas 14, 15, 16, 17, and 30. I just put this up to show that last year, the quota or the mortality limit was not reached, and that season stayed open through the end of October. So for black bears, the department recommends that we continue to work with stakeholders on those issues raised during the January 2023 commission meeting, and that we initiate the regular rulemaking process and bring a new draft for the commission's consideration to the January 2024 meeting. The public process for this approach would involve public meetings and a draft regulation towards the end of October, and a final recommendation to you at the January meeting. Any changes that we make would be in place for the spring of 2024. This process would allow us to go through the full public engagement process. And again, and probably very importantly, is to work with those key stakeholders that we talked about from the January of this year's meeting to potentially work towards some agreeable solutions. So hang on to this thought. I'll circle back to this recommendation in just a little bit. So I want to quickly run through mountain lions in a similar fashion. Again, for mountain lions, we try to use a 3-year trend analysis, and we've tried to run mountain lion seasons on a 3-year cycle. Of course, the flexibility that we have in our system allows us to set mortality limits outside of a cycle, but that 3-year approach allows us to smooth out variation from year to year and better assess trend in terms of direction of harvest and population. So the 3 major parameters that we look at in mountain lion harvest is the mortality density, or the number of mountain lions that are harvested based on winter habitat, the percent of adult females in the total harvest, and the average age of adult females in the harvest. So for example, if we see an increase in the percent of adult females in the total harvest, it means we're probably putting quite a bit of pressure on that population. We use all those parameters and generally quantify a mountain lion management unit as source stable or sink based on the direction of the population trend. Commissioner Brokaw, did you have a question? All right, I'll keep going. Maybe if you're having trouble with your mic, maybe type a question into the chat. So our state, we have the state divided up into mountain lion hunt areas and also mountain lion management units. So we combine for data analysis, we combine the information from the hunt areas into those mountain lion management units. And just as a reminder, last year at the July 2022 meeting, we revised Chapter 42. We brought it forth to the commission for your approval. We did bring forth several mortality limit increases. So on the left-hand side, those hunt areas in orange or red, depending on if you're colorblind like me, we did increase those hunt area mortality limits. So for example, in area 14, we increased the mortality limit from 15 to 20. But we also had several other hunt areas where, based on public input, we made some other adjustments. So those areas in green were increased as well at that July 2022 meeting. So if you take a look at where we ended up for this spring with those revised mortality limits that you all approved last July, I just highlighted the area that's probably of most concern or has been the focus of most of the attention. So if you look at area 14, southern end of the Wyoming range, that's an area where we increased the limit from 15 to 20. And through the end of this season, which ended April 1st, we didn't reach that mortality limit. We harvested 18 lions that were counted towards that mortality limit. But in areas 17 and 26 to the north, those areas did reach the mortality limit and closed in late December, December 20th for area 17 and December 26th for area 26. So as you all know, the department is in the process of updating Chapter 42 through the regular rulemaking process. This is to address new legislation that created the ability for the department or the commission to implement a lion pursuit season. Our public meetings for updating that chapter will be the late June through early August. And we intend to present a draft regulation to you all at the September meeting. And so the department's recommendation for addressing Chapter 42 is to simply incorporate a revision of mortality limits in addition to addressing the new lion pursuit legislation. So by doing so, this draft regulation would proceed through the regular rulemaking process and be presented to you all again at the September meeting. And any new mortality limits that might be in place would be there for the peak of lion harvest, which is late fall and through the winter months. So just to recap some options that you could consider, the commission could direct the department to stick with the 3-year review cycle, in which case we would not do any changes to the regulations right now in terms of mortality limits, and review those in January or July of 2025 for lions and January of 26 for black bears. That's one option. Another option the commission could direct the department is to undertake emergency regulations and do something much quicker. Emergency regulations would bypass the public engagement process and move quickly. And then lastly, again, the department's recommended course of action, which I'll recap here for you right now, would be to continue to work with our stakeholders as we discussed at the January 2023 commission meeting for Chapter 3, revise that regulation, take it out through the regular rulemaking process this fall, and bring a new draft for your review and consideration at the January 2024 meeting. For mountain lions, because we have that, we already intend to take that chapter through the regular rulemaking process this summer. We could incorporate a review of mortality limits and bring adjustments to you at the September 23 commission meeting. So those are our department recommendations, and I'll stand for any questions that you might have.
Ralph, are you able to be on?
No, he can hear everybody. And if he's got thoughts, then he's gonna call me and I'll put my phone on speaker so you can all hear.
Okay. Does anybody else have any comments or questions for Chief King?
Commissioner Ladwig, I do. If this
Go
is
ahead.
John. Mr. King, is either one of these of higher priority, for lack of a more artful way to put it? Is there,
Where's my camera?
whether it
You can
be-
talk, it's fine.
I think Ralph might be on. Are you there, Ralph?
So Ralph,
I'm trying.
we can hear you now and you might have to mute.
All right, Rusty, thanks.
Darn it.
So Commissioner Masterson, to answer your question, I think that I think based on the public comment that we heard, both are a priority for the commission to look at and consider. And I think the department's recommended timeline addresses those priorities in an appropriate time frame.
Thank you.
I think,
This is-
oh, go ahead, Ken.
Mr. Vice President, I have a question with the mountain lion on area 17 and 26. And I see that we met the quota for both of those.
That's correct.
And how much, what's kind of the feedback on 17 and 26 as far as the lion hunters saying, oh, heck, we could have killed another 100 of them, or we couldn't have killed, or we were right there. Do we have any feedback from that?
So Commissioner Roberts, I don't have any specific feedback from lion hunters. I think that if you take the department's recommendation, we'll be able to propose some changes and then allow for a full public comment process for folks to weigh in to those proposed changes before we would bring them to you to the September meeting. So we'd have ample opportunity to get that full public input.
Thank you.
Any other comment? I think as far as commissioners go, we've all probably seen a couple of emails where I kind of gathered the thought process was that there are a few people out there that don't want to have a knee-jerk reaction and raise, because of the previous winter, and raise the quotas very much or too much and cause an override, another problem down the line. But I still think we need to do something. I think in my mind, things are set up to where we're going to have time to, during the summer, discuss the mountain lion stuff and do something in September, and then review the bear thing like everybody wants to do and have the meetings with the public. And I think it's probably a pretty good shot at what we should be doing.
Mr. Vice President, I would recommend, if there's no more questions for Chief King, that you open up public comment at this point, and then the commission can then have another discussion.
Okay. We got public comment online.
So Chief Gokley will be letting them in at one at a time. So it'll just be a little pause while she gets them in the room.
Yeah.
So for those that are in the Bighorn room, I don't know if you're talking, but we're not hearing anything from Cheyenne right now.
My fault, I hit mute, sorry. So Luke should be able to talk now. More than-
Okay, Luke, are you on?
Yep. Can you guys hear me pretty good?
Go ahead.
All right. Good morning, President Brokaw, Commission, and Director Nesvik. Luke Worthington, Wyoming Houndsman Association. Well, you probably know why I'm here speaking in front of you today. As I watched the April Commission video, it raised some concerns for me and the houndsmen across the state of Wyoming. As we all know, the deer population on the west side of the state was hammered by this last winter. As all of us as sportsmen and women are concerned, and I believe attacking our large carnivores probably isn't the answer or the right move. We just had an increase across the state, including the Wyoming range, where most of the deer loss happened. The main reason for those increases was to address the decrease in the mule deer population. And while those increases didn't result in actually more deer, I believe that raising quotas again without seeing what our last increases have done to our large carnivores would be dangerous to their population and well-being. As most of you know, lions and the bears don't breed till they're 2 or 3 years old and don't have young every year. They raise their young for a year and usually breed every couple of years. So raising quotas and having more females killed can and will result in a huge decrease in population, in which takes them twice as long to recover. My recommendation is to leave the quotas where they are until the next time they're up for the discussion on their 3-year cycle, along with the public comment period. Another thing is that in the July 2022 meeting and the January 23 meeting, nobody requested further increases in harvest limits beyond those proposed increases from last summer. We are all concerned about our deer in the great state of Wyoming, but with our recent increase in the lion and bears quotas, I think that we should wait to see the results from the last increases with scientific logic. I 100% support our large carnivore department and allowing them to use their data to see if this is something that the population of our bears and lions can sustain. They have proven their management with scientific data. We can both have ungulates and large carnivores on the landscape in healthy levels. I thank the commission and the department for the opportunity for the public to bring their concerns on this very important matter. I trust that you guys will make the right decision on behalf of our large carnivores and our big game species through scientific data and our biologist recommendations. I thank you guys.
Okay, thank you, Luke. Is there any questions for Luke?
Just Johnson has a raised hand.
Okay, Luke, thank you.
Yep, thank you guys.
Mr. President, the next comment spokesperson that we're looking for is Cindy Campbell.
Cindy, are you on? I still show that you're muted. Cindy, you're still muted.
Mr. President, it appears that we lost her.
Okay,
So maybe we can come back to her.
okay.
Mr. President, we have public comment submission from Mr. Dick Peterson.
There we go. Am I on?
Cindy?
Yes.
Yeah, Cindy, you're on now.
Sorry
We'll
about that.
go ahead with Cindy and then go to Mr. Peterson after that.
Sorry about that. Can you see me?
We see a picture of bears.
I didn't mean to do that. Well, you're gonna have to see.
Now you're muted again.
Mute. Hello? Do you got me right now?
Yes, we do, Dick.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. This is my first time doing it. Yep, forgive me. I'm kind of an old fart and I'm not very technical. So anyway, what I wanted to bring up is I'm from Worland. Our areas for bear is number 3. Last year, you guys divided 4 and 3. It was one of those things that was long overdue. We had a sow mortality rate of 6, and most of them were killed over on the Sheridan side, which was area 4. And so in doing this, dissolving this and making it into individual areas, you increased the quota of mortality of sows over in the Sheridan side to 8, and you reduced ours to 2. To be honest with you, I didn't understand why. I know that I talked to a biologist, Sam Stevens up in Grable. I've talked to both of our game wardens here in Worland and Ten Sleep area. They are also don't understand why. They feel that their input towards that was they just didn't get any response from people. I'm really learning more, looking at the science that he was showing with the harvest quotas and stuff like that. But as a avid bear hunter in the spring that I bait and have a few other buddies that bait, I can assure you that the number of bear in our area is probably far exceeds any of your game biologist or stuff think that there is, because right now there are being no hair samples being taken up in our area. I think our harvest it reduced to 2. I think it should at least be doubled. It just makes our season a little bit shorter, and it's like we were talking with the biology of the bear. As we know, the bear, the boars do kill cubs. I feel if the season stays open a little bit longer, maybe we can kill a few more boars out of this, and that would actually help increase bear numbers if you feel that they're low. Right now, like I say, with my 2 buddies, the other buddies that I know that do bait along the face of the bighorns, none of us are seeing a lack of bear, different bear. So we're hoping that you guys will reconsider our quota at least to double it, if not triple it, and hopefully we can get some of this resolved. I was trying to get a hold of Kendra Brown just to see what the Game and Fish has actually paid out in mortality with bear kills along area 3. I've been unable to get in touch with her. My phone calls haven't, evidently she just doesn't have the time to respond. So the other thing I would like to ask is while I got Miss Lumball on here, again, I want to say that I'm pretty technical illiterate. I don't Facebook, but I do text and I do email. And I would really like to get your email address, Ms. Lumball. So that was what I had to bring towards commission today, and I want to thank you for your time.
Hey, any questions or comments for Mr. Peterson? Mr. Peterson, this is a good time for you because it appears that more than likely we're going to go ahead and put the bear thing in place to do public meetings and stuff this summer, and your input will be welcomed at any and all of those meetings.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I got a text from Cindy, says she can't get her Zoom to work.
I think I can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, we can.
Okay, well, we're gonna look at the bear picture and I would like to give my comment.
Okay, that's fine. Go right ahead.
Okay, sorry about that. My name is Cindy Campbell. I've been a resident of Wyoming for over 50 years, and I reside south of Jackson. And thank you so much for the opportunity to speak on this important topic. I, like so many others, are devastated over the catastrophic loss of deer and antelope fawns this year. It's absolutely brutal. We have a small muley herd who live in the forest up behind my house, and I'm really anxious to get a look at them soon. But we still have quite a bit of snow here. Having said that, I do not believe that considering the possibility of raising mortality limits on our predator populations is an appropriate action, and there is plenty of science to back up my belief. Last week in Wildfile, they published an article entitled "In Winter's Wake, Lions, Bears, and Coyotes Could Be in the Crosshairs." The article cites research conducted throughout the GYE over the past 20 plus years by your own colleagues, including University of Wyoming ecologist and professor Keith Monteith, who reports that in the early 2000s, Idaho, quote, went to great lengths to go to war on coyotes, unquote, in an effort to influence a mule deer herd. And researchers found that it had, quote, absolutely no relationship whatsoever, unquote, on fawn production. The article goes on to state that Mark Hurley, currently Idaho Department of Fish and Game Wildlife research manager, headed the study, and he actually concluded, quote, benefits of predator removal appear to be marginal and short-term in southeastern Idaho, and likely will not appreciably change long-term dynamics of mule deer populations in the Intermountain West, unquote. Our own local and regional biologists are telling us that increasing quotas on predators does not equate to higher fawn production the following year. And killing more cats could actually create the exact opposite effect, per studies done over decades by the Teton Cougar Project. I assume Wyoming Game and Fish has similar studies of record. We all know it's pretty easy to find a study to back up one's opinion, but this study on coyotes is relevant to my argument and clear in concluding that killing more predators does not solve issues of high mortality in prey species after, say, a ginormous. With all due respect, after the last commission meeting, Director Nesbitt.
I'm sorry.
I'm gonna wait on that, no problem. Mr. Nesbitt said, I quote, I do believe that a potential exists to provide a more rapid rebound by targeting predator species. It's certainly not absolute, but the potential exists, unquote. Science disputes that statement. Waging war on predators is simply not the answer. Therefore, I urge you to vote to stick with the 3-year review cycle that I just learned about in Rick's presentation. I believe Wyoming Game and Fish has a duty to follow its own science without added interference due to emotional pleas from those concerned about modified hunting opportunities. Predators are really not the problem. Thank you for your time.
Mr. President, we have another public comment submitted by a Mr. Joe Condoleezza.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. Director Nesvik, members of the commission, thanks for giving me a chance to speak here today. My name is Joe Condoleezza. I'm with the American Bear Foundation out of Cody here. And I just had a couple points. Mr. Worthington kind of touched on a lot of what I was going to talk about. One thing I want to make sure that the commission understands is how important large carnivores are to a lot of the general public in this state as far as hunting goes. There's a lot of us that are extremely passionate about hunting large carnivores, and we want to ensure that we have a sustainable population out there to continue to do so. While most of us also deer and elk hunt, we understand that there needs to be balance, but we believe the Game and Fish Commission and the Large Carnivore Department is doing everything in their power, using the science, using the knowledge that they have to influence that. And I think we need to stay focused on kind of the science of it rather than a knee-jerk reaction. I mean, everything that's happened with our mule deer is terrible. Not only our mule deer and our antelope, but we kind of feel that our mule deer have a lot bigger problems than predators in our state. And we've seen the decline in mule deer even when we didn't have bad winters. So I think blaming lions and bears for that is kind of misplaced. It seems like because we can't control the grizzly, we have limited control over the wolves. We're kind of pushing all the blame on large carnivores to the things that we can control, and that's lions and black bears. So just want to kind of make that point. Another thing that I'm really concerned about is we just beat a lawsuit to ban bear baiting. We have a lot of people that are looking at trying to attack our state and other states for our hunting of large carnivores. I don't want to give them any more reason to come at us. We have a really good thing here where we have female mortality quotas, and that kind of insulates us. And I think if we start going the wrong way with kind of an over harvest of carnivores, we're going to see more things like the bear bait lawsuit come into fruition. So I want to be cognizant of that and make sure that we look at that. And I guess finally, I just wanted to say, there's a lot of us that are really passionate about bears and mountain lions and hunting them. And a lot of us that do hunt them, I know a lot of lion hunters that will do everything in their power to ensure they can continue to do so. And same with bear hunters. And if we just get to going on the wrong direction on this, we could end up hurting the populations too much, and they take a long time to recover. So I hope you'll consider that. My recommendation, our foundation's recommendation, is to stick with the 3-year cycle that we have. We just increased quotas in a lot of areas, and we're addressing some of the concerns of the public on that. Let's see how it plays out. Maybe it's great and we can do more, but maybe it was too much. So that would be my ask, and I thank you guys for your efforts on this and letting me comment.
Mr. Vice President's muted, I think.
I had a phone call come in. I'm sorry. Is there any comments for Joe? Thank you, Rusty. Thank you for your comments, Joe. They'll be considered. We have anyone else?
Mr. President, we'd like to go back and see if Mr. Mike Crossan is on, or if he's on under some other name, he'll have to let us know.
Okay. Mike?
We're not seeing him at this time.
Okay.
And Mr. President, Jess Johnson raised her hand to comment, I believe.
All right. Jess, are you on? I show you're muted, Jess. There you are.
Yep. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, I think so.
Mr. Vice President Ladwig, President Brokaw, Director Nesvik, and Commissioners Jess Johnson, Wyoming Wildlife Federation. I'll keep this brief, as Mr. Worthington with the Wyoming Houndsman Association and Mr. Condilas with the American Bear Foundation pretty much covered exactly my sentiments from WWF as well. We are in support of the option to stick with this 3-year review. I think looking at wildlife management on such short-term sort of knee-jerk reaction doesn't let us see the proved out trends from the changes already made. And our recommendation is, if we want to see a quick turnaround this year and a quick difference in our mule deer herds, that we redouble and focus everything on the habitat, whether it is improvement or anything with that. We will see far faster and more marked results from that kind of focus than focusing on the large carnivore. I think if we stick with how our large carnivore biologists have set forth a really incredible, well-researched, supported by science roadmap to how we have both large carnivore hunting, large carnivores, as well as ungulate hunting and everything like that. I really trust in our department's large carnivore division. They put a really amazing plan together. And I think we stick with that and let that see how that proves out. I really appreciate the thought and the care that has gone into how worried we are about our ungulates. You know, it's heart-wrenching to see, and it's easy to get sucked into what I would say is a easy and not very effective thing to put our attention on, which is, you know, hammering down on large carnivores. I think our effective way to do this, our long-term benefit, the fastest outcome we'll find is to sit down on habitat and really, really dig in and figure out ways. That's certainly where WWF's priorities are going to be. I really hope that's where the commission decides to go. And you know, we really stand behind our amazing field biologists that are doing all of this work. Thank you guys for giving them the opportunity to show how amazing Wyoming Game and Fish Department is.
Okay, thank you, Jess. Is there any comments or questions for Jess?
So, Mr. Vice President, I do have a question for Jess, if that's okay. This is Commissioner Bell.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
So Jess, I just want to clarify. So the department recommendation and action is to look at the mountain lion, due to the new legislation that was passed. They were going to look at that and bring that forward to us in September. And then the black bear, their recommendation is to look at that and go through that public process and then have that conversation in January. But I just want to make sure you're specifically asking us to just stay with a 3-year review cycle and not what the department recommendation course of action is.
I think I can live with the January, and we know that lion pursuit will be coming up regardless because of the legislation that will come up in September. I think what I'm sticking with is what we put forward in the last few, I think it was the chapter 42, and what was presented by our large carnivore biologists is what we would stand by. If I have gotten that incorrect, and that is not the 3-year review, then I apologize. But I hesitate with this knee-jerk reaction. As much as we want to like help right away, I don't see this as something that will give us the benefit we're looking for.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay, any further questions? Thank you again, Jess. Appreciate your input.
Thank you. Thank you for everything you all do.
You're welcome.
Mr. President,
Yes,
Mr. Crossan emailed us comment to be shared with the commission, so I can read that to you now if you'd like.
sure. Go right ahead.
I would like to present comment about the proposed increase in black bear and mountain lion take quotas. I recall a few years ago, Game and Fish was going to study black bear populations because there was a concern about lack of data regarding what the actual population is to compare it to the number of bears known to be legally killed. I don't know that a study has ever been completed, and I hope the commission refrains from a knee-jerk reaction increasing the bear quota without science to support it. I spent considerable time in the Bridger-Teton National Forest, and I don't see that many black bears or a lot of evidence of black bears. I don't feel like there is an overpopulation or that they present a significant threat to mule deer fawns. Regarding lions, again, I see little sign of them and have only seen 2 in my life in the wild. I know they did not prey on the herd of deer near my house in Pinedale this winter or in any past winter. Again, caution needs to be exercised to avoid overkilling them as well. Thank you and best regards.
Thank you. And what was the name on that again, please?
Mike Crossan, Crosson.
Thank you. Any further comments?
None that were previously submitted, Mr. President.
Okay. So everyone's heard the discussion and this morning, is there any comments from the commission?
Mr. Vice Chair, this is John Masterson. Can I make a couple comments? And perhaps Mr. King or Mr. Nesvik or other commissioners might have thoughts on my comments that I'd be curious to hear if they do.
Go right ahead.
I want to make clear in my head exactly what is being recommended by the department, because based on some of the comments and some of the emails I've received, I'm hearing people concerned that coming out of this meeting, there will be changes to the mortality limits. And as I understand, that is absolutely not the case. What we are talking about is sticking with the standard 3-year cycle versus emergency rules and regulations versus the department's recommendation, which is, as we've heard, with regard to the mountain lion timing, we're revisiting that anyway. And the bear timing, moving that up a year, which would provide plenty of time for substantive comments on proposals. Sorry for the long-winded question. I just want to make sure that I understand and you can clarify. We're not changing anything today. We are talking about what course of action to take to possibly change mortality limits and quotas. Is that correct?
Mr. Masterson, you stated that probably better than I thought I could do. Does the director or the chief have anything to add?
Yeah, he was correct, Mr. Vice President. Exactly. I mean, there's nothing, that was very well said.
Can I follow that up, Mr. Vice Chair?
Yes.
First of all, can we explicitly put in the minutes that Director Nesvik thought that I stated something well? I just want to add one other comment, and I appreciate it being explicitly stated by the department that that's what we're doing. We've heard the comment, and I respect it, and I understand how the perception could happen that this is a knee-jerk reaction or rushing in to address a situation. And from where I sit, I don't think that's the case. Given the timing of the department's recommendation, I think it appears to be an appropriate period of time, allow for public comment, allow our large carnivore division to weigh in, because I have the same respect as one of the public commenters noted for that division, and I think they really know their stuff. So I just wanted to make sure everybody's understood this is not a knee-jerk reaction, at least as I view it. And I'm second, I guess, is it's easy to perceive this as blaming large carnivores or putting more blame, if you will, on them than they deserve. I hope that perception is that people don't come away with that perception. I think it's a revisiting and considering updates to a legitimate management technique. And I promise I won't say anything more. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
Well, we appreciate your input. That's what we're here for. One thing I'd like to put in, and maybe this isn't the place for it, but I live, as you all know, on the eastern side of Wyoming. We don't have a bear problem. We have some mountain lion problems, but we have a coyote problem. And the coyote problem is something that Game and Fish can't really control because it's part of the predator system, and the Department of Ag controls that. I have been recently appointed to the Animal Damage Management Board, and we're having a meeting in the middle of this month. And I'm sure that the coyote population problem in a lot of areas will be discussed quite a bit at that meeting. So that's kind of it's part of the predator problem, but it's not part of the large carnivore problem. Anybody else have any comments?
And Mr. Vice President, you may consider, I just got word that there was one more person who didn't submit an advanced comment form, but has now indicated they wish to comment, Elaine Wainman. So I'd be up to you as to whether you want to allow that or not.
Well, we have an open meeting situation. I would go ahead and allow that.
Okay, Chief Goa-Kalea can make that happen.
Lane, I'm sorry. We're gonna get variety here. L-A-N-E, how that one?
It is.
Is Lane on?
We do believe so. We're opening it up so we can speak. Mr. Vice Chair.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Let's see. What about now? Am I still on?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to make a comment as a sports person and as a, guy who's out in the field pretty much every day. And, obviously I've heard a lot of you guys want to use the knee-jerk reaction and a lot of statements, but I'd have to say, I mean, in my life as a guy who's heavily involved with wildlife, and I'm not going to hide it, who also makes a living in the industry, so I'm out there a ton. And I believe that I could speak from having some firsthand experience in the field. And, I've heard a lot of people, who are concerned about predators. And I could tell you what, predator hunting and predators are the most abundant animal and have been for a long time. I mean, I have dogs. I don't call myself a houndsman because, I actually believe I have dogs because I'm trying to help save deer. And, I'm out there in the field all winter long. And I can tell you what, it's like the sheep and cattle guys say about predators. It's a slaughter. It's, and I hear people that say, well, I haven't seen very many or this and that. Well, if you spend enough time, you're going to realize there are tons of coyotes, there are tons of bears, there are tons of lions. There's a reason why more people are joining the hunting of predators in this past decade than they are in the deer and elk, because it's better hunting. I mean, I go on a good bear or lion hunt, that's a one-day hunt because there's a lot of predators. I think people need to actually acknowledge that, I know we all have different interests and we all feel differently about certain animals. And, I like to say I have respect for predators, but I need to speak as a sportsman who's watched an increase in predators. I mean, I heard the bear guy from Cody get up and talk. I was in Meeteetse last week watching a grizzly bear trying to kill a moose out in the middle of the river. So, I'm concerned personally as a sportsman for the deer, the elk, the moose, the antelope, because I would have liked to have known the guy who termed predator, who termed prey, because that is the difference. The predators kill the prey. And I hear a lot of people act like that doesn't happen. It's like, hey, winners kill, so do predators, so do cars, so do a lot of things. So don't discredit killing. All these things are factors. So I am definitely in support of increasing the quotas. I mean, like I said, I have dogs. I know what's out there. I mean, there are lots of lions. There are lots of bears. If someone wants to come see some predators, they can come hang out with me. I could show you. There's a lot of them. This is a one-day hunt for sportsmen. you know, it's tougher to go have a quality deer or elk hunt than it is to have a quality bear or lion hunt, because it's good. There are a lot of predators, and I just wanted to speak up because, you know, I know we all respect and love wildlife, and some people like bears and lions more than they like deer and elk. And you know, I do think there's got to be a moment when we recognize that, hey, that it's not the predators in the West that are struggling. It's not. And I don't think anybody who's out there in the field will tell you anything different. No, it's you know, having some quality deer hunting that's struggling. And when they're out getting killed by predators, they only live once. You know, when a bear kills a fawn, it's gone, it's done. That's the end. They don't come back. We're not raising them in captivity and turn them loose. You know, it's just like when a wolf eats a moose or a grizzly bear eats a moose, that moose is gone. Its legacy is gone. And when I was in Cody, you know, the lady at the front desk, I found some dead sheep that had died from a couple years ago. And, you know, I commented on how many grizzly bears I saw last week. And she said, and she complained to me that the bears were whining about how many people are back there. And you know what I laughed about after we walked out the door? We saw more grizzlies than we saw people. So her comment has, there was no grounds or basis to the comment. We saw more grizzly bears than people. So, you know, I can tell she likes bears more than she thinks that, you know, the rest of us should be out there enjoying it. But there's a lot of predators. I saw more bears than I saw people. We also saw a wolf. You know, we saw lion tracks in the mud. I mean, when you can just go out and spend one day on the mountain, see more grizzlies, a wolf, and lion tracks in the dirt, you know there's a lot of predators. And that's the same everywhere I go. And so I'm glad you guys let me speak, because I wanted to be heard that there are a lot of us sportsmen that are in the field all the time. And we do know there are a lot of predators. And that's why I think it is something we want considered, because you know, there's a lot of predators, and these animals that are now smaller in number on the deer and the elk side. You know, I killed a lion in March, last lion on the unit 14 quota to be harvested. I showed that I made sure that when I skinned it out, that all the fat on it was left, so that I could show the game and fish guy, this thing's not struggling. And it had a massive tail, and he pointed at that and he said, you know, it probably shows that it's super healthy. And I was like, dude, look how much fat is on this thing. Hard winter, does it look like it's having a hard winter? No. They thrive when it's a hard winter. Killing is easy for the predators. They lay it to it, and there's going to be just as many of them when a smaller deer herd has to face them. So I do think it's something to be considered. And I've said enough. So thanks for bearing with me.
Okay, Lane, thank you. Could I get your last name, please?
Wayment, Wayment.
And where do you live, Lane?
I live in Cokeville, Wyoming. Cokeville.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Is there any questions for Lane? Okay. Any other comments? Well, I guess we can go on from here then.
Mr. Vice President, this is Commissioner Bell. I would make a motion to go forward with the recommended action that the department recommended, their course of action and timeline for chapter 23 or chapter 42 and 3.
Okay, motion's been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Ashley, you seconded that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any further discussion? We'll do a roll call vote. Then, Commissioner Lundvall,
Aye.
Commissioner Masterson,
Aye.
Commissioner Roberts,
Aye.
Commissioner Bell. Oh, you already, yeah, Commissioner Bell.
Aye.
I will vote aye. Commissioner Brokaw,
He's an aye. He.
Commissioner
texted.
Jolovich ever join us? Apparently not. Looks to me like they were going to go ahead with the department's recommendation. And have some considerable thought put into this and have our large carnivore experts and our biologists do their job. And we're going to listen to the public input. And we're going to take care of chapter 3 and chapter 42 by January. Is there any other comments?
I think that's all we have from the department, Mr. President.
Okay, I guess with that, I'll adjourn this meeting. See you all. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.